Hey guys, welcome to Dead End Street. I'm Al. We are continuing our Albums of the Year series. We are on 1975, which is where we're probably going to stop. We're definitely going to stop the 70s, and we'll pick up at 1976 next winter, and then we'll pick up where we left off with the 80s in 1989, and we'll set sail into the 90s for the spring and the summer. But 1975, very weird year. Um, there's some really great stuff. I mean, all 25 of these records are great in their own right, but it's strange in the fact that this is going to be probably the most classic rock heavy one that I've ever done. Um, there's some really cool edgy stuff in here, but 75 was kind of really strange midpoint in between. So glam rock is fading out and punk rock hasn't yet come in. So we're kind of like in the middle here, literally in the middle of the 70s. So let's get started. So number 25 is going to be Soap Opera by the Kinks. Um, so Ray Davies wrote Soap Opera as a concept record. There's some sort of story going on. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with this guy being a star maker and making this guy a star and something. But the music holds up. So that's the most important thing. There's kind of like this big era here where the Kinks are going through these strange concept albums, all of which I like, but they're very odd. But on this one, you have everybody's a star facing the crowd and can't stop the music. All really cool songs. Number 24 is going to be Hair of the Dog by Nazareth. Hair of the Dog is a really good hard rock record. Um, I think most of the 80s hard rock bands would probably agree with that, if not straight up rip them off. How anyone could listen to this record and not hear Back in Black by AC/DC is, and when you listen to Miss Misery, I think it's the second track. It's the second track on the record. It really sounds like Brian Johnson. The title track is a downright sleaze rock classic, and their version of Love Hurts has become the version of Love Hurts, which has a great vocal by Dan McCafferty on it. Number 23 is going to be Force It by UFO, which is the second record that they did with a very young Michael Schenker on guitar. Now, this record's a little bit more refined than the last record. Packs a harder punch. It's a harder album. Mother Mary, Too Much of Nothing, and This Kids are big highlights of this entire era of UFO, not just on this album. Number 22 is Coney Island Baby by Lou Reed. This record is different than Lou's other 70s records in the fact that it's a more personal record. Much of it was inspired by his then girlfriend and by his earlier childhood memories. Most of the songs are short, concise, accessible enough to have been singles. Crazy Feeling and She's My Best Friend are just classic Lou, as is A Gift, which showcases Lou's biting humor. And the whole thing is just topped off by the title track, which just features some of Blues' best storytelling. Number 21 is The Dictators with The Dictators Go Girl Crazy. If you haven't heard of The Dictators, they were a punk band, for lack of a better description. I think most people would agree at this point. They were from New York City, the mid 70s. They were pretty much like so you had the Dolls and you had the Ramones, and I guess the Dictators were the bridge between the two, in the evolution of New York punk anyway. Lots of punchy three-note riffs, lots of self-deprecating humor. Both were their trademarks, as well as frontman Handsome Dick Manitoba. It's pretty amazing how unknown they still are even today. Songs like Next Big Thing and Teen Generate should be common songs in the lexicon of punk. And maybe someday the world will catch up. It's not too late, right? Number 20 is Peter Hamill with Nadir's Big Chance. So this is Peter Hamill from Vandergrift Generator. This is his fifth solo record. And it's very different than any of his other work, whether with the Generator or solo. It has kind of this proto-punk energy with a spaced out production style on it. It's pretty adventurous and fun, which is not like a word that is generally used to describe anything else that he's done. Um, but here it is. I think again with this record, there's some sort of concept going on right over my head. I haven't been able to pick it out whatsoever, but the title track opens up the record and really sets the table nicely for the rest of it. And the ballad, Been Alone So Long, really stands out amongst all the noise. Number 19 is going to be A Night at the Opera by Queen. Yep, the album with Bohemian Rhapsody. But guess what? There's other great songs on Night at the Opera. Death on Two Legs is, in my opinion, their best hard rock song. Love of My Life is, I think, their best piano ballad. I personally like it better than Bohemian Rhapsody. Sweet Lady is a very under-recognized song on this album full of classics. It really kind of goes under the radar. This album's production was quite the undertaking for 1975. It was a gamble, and I think it's safe to say it paid off. Number 18 is going to be Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow with Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. So in 1975, Ritchie Blackmore bolted from Deep Purple while they were on tour with a band called Elf, which featured the singer Ronnie James Dio. So Blackmore had befriended Elf. Apparently, I guess Elf just kind of fired their guitarist. Ritchie Blackmore stepped in. Rainbow was born, at least the lineup for the first record anyway. And this debut has some of the best hard rock songs of the mid 70s. Man on the Silver Mountain, Self Portraits, 16th Century Greensleeves, Temple of the King. And though I think the live version of Catch the Rainbow is the best version, the song itself, even the studio version, is amazing, and Dio's vocals are just phenomenal. Number 17 is Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith. So just 3 albums in, and Aerosmith has already begun their peak. Toys in the Attic is sleazy, it's trippy, it's epic, and completely honest, to this day, I still think that Walk This Way and Sweet Emotion are my 2 least favorite songs in the record. Songs like Uncle Salty, You See Me Crying, and Round are 3 of the best songs they ever did. Number 16 is Tonight's the Night by Neil Young. So this is the final chapter of Neil's Ditch trilogy. It's a pretty bleak record. He was mourning the death of his friend and Crazy Horse guitarist Danny Whitten. It's quite the dirge. It's somewhat unrelenting. The title track sets the tone. Literally borrows the tune from the Stones' Lady Jane, and puts some really introspective lyrics over it. Mellow Mind has a nice riff with a very tortured and strained vocal by Neil. Albuquerque and New Mama are melancholy and really heartfelt. Lookout Joe and Tired Eye slam the door in the proceedings before the title track is reprised. A very complete statement that somehow sat on the shelf for a good year before its release. Strange, very strange. It actually was the album I think he recorded directly after Harvest. It's hard to tell because he held so many albums back and released them years later, but very good record. Number 15 is Dress to Kill by Kiss. So this is their 3rd studio record. It's just a fun New York style rock record. You can say what you want about them, but if you haven't tried listening to Dress to Kill alongside of the Dolls records and the Dictators and the Ramones that were out during that era, the album kind of stands on its own with those records. Room Service, Ladies in Waiting, Come On and Love Me are all just great rock songs. There's also others. There's that other song, Rock and Roll All Night. I hadn't listened to a real lot of Kiss records in the last 15, 20 years, coming into like doing 1974, 1975 here. But the truth is, if you listen with your ears, they're just great, great rock records. Number 14 is Fighting by Thin Lizzy. So this is the album where Thin Lizzy becomes the two guitar attack that they became defined by. Um, Phil Lynot's melodies and lyrics are full of color and emotion on this record. Brian Robertson and Scott Gorham really refined their harmony solos and riffs, and would even get better on the following record. This record has some of Lizzy's best deep tracks, like For Those Who Love to Live, Suicide, and Wild One. And Spirit Slips Away is another classic Lizzy deep track. Number 13 is Sabotage by Black Sabbath. So this is Sabbath at their weirdest, and in some ways their most cerebral, at least with the original lineup. It's without a doubt the end of their classic era, I believe. And most likely their last appearance you'll see on any of these 70s videos. We'll see. But the power of tracks like Hole in the Sky and Symptom of the Universe is just undeniable. And for me, the highest peak of the record is Megalomania. It's just so unsettling. Number 12 is Radioactive by Kraftwerk. Listening to what Kraftwerk were doing in 1975 is really kind of mind-blowing. I mean, they were basically writing synth pop songs in the mid 70s. They were so far ahead of pretty much everyone. So, I mean, this was their first record that was made up of completely electronic sounds. And it changed not only the scope of what they would do for the next 50 years, but pretty much everyone else. I mean, if you're looking at either whether it be new wave or hip hop or anything that contained electronic elements, was basically started with Kraftwerk. The title track is just so sterile, but at the same time still melodic and warm. There's a lot of interludes on this record, but the actual musical tracks are just really great. Number 11 is going to be Come Taste the Band by Deep Purple. So as we stated earlier, Ritchie Blackmore quit, which was unthinkable at the time, having Deep Purple without Ritchie Blackmore. But Purple continued without him, which was even more unthinkable. But enter Mr. Tommy Bolin, and along with David Coverdale, Glenn Hughes, Ian Pace, and John Lord, still a great hard rock record. There's a lot more soul music in the repertoire at this point, but I think it really works, especially with two vocalists, Hughes and Coverdale. Coming Home, Getting Tighter, I Need Love all showcase the excellent musicianship and killer groove of the rhythm section, and just the crazy vocals. Hughes and Lord wrote This Time Around, which is just a stunning ballad. For me, the peak moment of the record is Coverdale and Hughes' duet on You Keep On Moving, which is the album's closing track. Possibly the most soulful harmonies in any hard rock song. Tommy Bolin passed shortly after the supporting tour, and afterwards Deep Purple broke up. It's a shame because this lineup had something, and it would have been interesting to see what else they had. Number 10 is going to be Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. So Pink Floyd was formed, led, and spearheaded by Syd Barrett in the mid-60s. Syd sank into mental illness and was replaced by his childhood friend David Gilmour in 1968. Syd did 2 solo records and left the music business for good. Floyd continued on making records, honing their craft for the next 4 or 5 years until they hit pay dirt with Dark Side of the Moon in 1973. While recording the next record, the band began reflecting back on Syd and the years that they spent forming the band. And they wrote a song called Shine On You Crazy Diamond in his honor. During the recording of that song, after 6 years of zero contact with anyone else in the band, Syd shows up to the studio at Abbey Road, completely bald, overweight, and unrecognizable to his friends. It's one of the most unsettling and haunting stories in all of rock lore. Um, it's been documented many times in many Floyd documentaries, and to hear the members of the band tell the story is much more interesting than anything that I could do. But um, Wish You Were Here has 5 tracks, and all 5 are known the world over. Um, Wish You Were Here, um, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, Welcome to the Machine, Have a Cigar. There is some debate as to which was better, Dark Side of the Moon or Wish You Were Here. Um, I'm not sure. I mean, was Wish You Were Here the follow up to Dark Side of the Moon, or was Dark Side of the Moon the precursor to Wish You Were Here? Um, I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Number 9 is going to be Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin. So this is Zeppelin Sprawling, 2-record opus. It's a pretty magnificent feat. It's one of those rare double albums that you can listen to straight through. There's no common thread that runs through these tracks. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of music, but it's just great. Trampled Underfoot has one of the best grooves in rock history, followed up immediately by quite possibly the most soaring rock epic, Kashmir. However, I may argue that In the Light might be a better epic. Shadowy and monolithic. It's just amazing. Down by the Seaside, Wonton Song are another couple of Zeppelin classics that are on this record. But to me, 10 Years Gone is a top 5 all-time Zeppelin song for me. That combination of Page and Jones in the intro and the perfect Robert Plant melody topped over top of the monster drums by Bonham. It's just a flawless Zeppelin track. Number 8 is going to be Welcome to My Nightmare by Alice Cooper. This is Alice's first solo record after the band broke up following the release of Muscle of Love. So he brings in the producer that he was using for most of the Alice Cooper Band records, and that would be Bob Ezrin, producer extraordinaire. And Bob was just previously working with Lou Reed on his Berlin record, so he decided to bring Lou's band with him to record Welcome to My Nightmare. They really lay into the theatrics really hard on this one, but man, it really works. There's songs about childhood nightmares, spiders, dead lovers, and refrigerators, and of course, the excellent Only Women Bleed. Number 7 is going to be Zuma by Neil Young and Crazy Horse. I don't know what it is about Neil's guitar tone on this record, but I just love the way it sounds. It's direct and raw, but still incredibly emotive. It's the first record after the Ditch trilogy, and kind of a sister record to Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere. At least I think so anyway. The record sequencing is also pretty well done. Don't Cry No Tears opens the record with just the right mood. Then Danger Bird just lets loose completely. Pardon My Heart and Looking for a Love dip into the dreamy kind of country vibe. Side 2 opens with great riffs on Stupid Girl and Drive Back. And then next comes the album centerpiece, which is Cortez the Killer, which is killer. It's just one of Neil's best. Great guitar work. And then it closes with Through the Sails, which has Crosby, Stills, and Nash singing back up with him, harmony. It's just one of Neil's best records. Number 6 is going to be Another Green World by Brian Eno. So this record really sounds to me kind of like the precursor to the Iggy and Bowie Berlin records, which Eno had a hand in, especially on Low and Heroes and Lodger. But there's plenty of exciting sounds being used on this record, and great bass playing by Percy Jones, amazing guitar playing by Robert Fripp, viola by John Cale, just stellar drumming by Phil Collins, who comes into this crazy album and just lays down just the fattest drums. It definitely starts to light the way for what Eno would do with his ambient stuff going forward. because there's only vocals in about 5 of the tracks. And among them are Sky Saw and St. Elmo's Fire, both of which I love. And of the more ambient stuff, In Dark Trees is definitely my favorite. Number 4 is going to be the self-titled solo debut by Ian Hunter, formerly of Mott the Hoople. So Mott broke up in '74, and he wasted no time going back into the studio with Mick Ronson of Spiders from Mars fame and making his first solo record. Lounge Lizard, which was originally recorded by Mott, is on here, but this version is a lot more muscular. Once Bitten, Twice Shy is a rough and tumble rocker that was completely neutered by Great White like 15 years later. Boy is just a classic Ian Hunter ballad. Mick Ronson is a beast on this record, as always. Check out the solo on Whole Truth. Awesome. It Ain't Easy When You Fall is another piano-centered ballad that he just completely nails. I Get So Excited could have easily been a Mott track. I don't know. I just think Ian Hunter is just a wonderful rock artist, and as long as he wants to say something, I'm always going to be there to listen. Number 4 is going to be Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan. So Blood on the Tracks kind of smacked everyone in the head when it came out. Bob had a string of pretty good records after Nashville Skyline, and it just started to look like pretty good was where he was going to be going forward. And then Blood on the Tracks came out. It was written and recorded in a very tumultuous time in Bob's life. His marriage was coming to an end, and he was really feeling the impact of that. The record opens up with Tangled Up in Blue, Simple Twist of Fate, which sound as if he's singing about himself in the third person. He never seems to not find the word he's looking for. It's just incredibly impressive and inspirational. But he really showed a lot more detail to the songs musically on this record this time also, evidenced by tracks like You're a Big Girl Now, which is my personal favorite on the record. And If You See Her, Say Hello. Shelter from the Storm and Buckets of Rain are literally just Bob with his guitar and some bass as dressing, but really gives a very intimate feel that had been absent for a few years on his record, to be honest. Bob was back at the top of his game, and this record sparked a new era of vitality for him in the 1970s. Number 3 is going to be Young Americans by David Bowie. So, most of you know who watch this channel how massive of a Bowie fan I am. It's my all-time favorite artist. And up to this point, for now, I've been a lifelong Philadelphian. So this record has always been kind of a big deal for me. And it's also my introduction to Bowie, because as a kid, it was played around the house quite a bit when I was growing up. Okay, so backstory. Bowie came to Philly to record what he visioned to be his Plastic Soul record, is what he was doing, what he was looking to do. So he heads to famed Sigma Sound Studios here in Philly and enlists a wide range of musicians from Philly and from New York. Among those musicians, an up-and-coming sax player named David Sanborn and a yet unknown young vocalist named Luther Vandross. It's also the first record to feature Carlos Alomar, who would be with Bowie for the next 5 albums at least. The songs on this record show an honest passion for the Philly soul sound, but with an unmistakably Bowie slant. The title track is truly one of his career highlights. The tracks Win and Right both contain outstanding musical arrangements and exceptional backing vocals also. Somebody Up There Likes Me and Can You Hear Me features some of Bowie's best vocal performances of his career. just beautiful string arrangements and transcendent saxophone playing by David Sanborn. But besides the title track, the showstopper is Bowie and Luther's co-write in Fascination. Why this song was not released as a single is absolutely mind-boggling to me. It would have been a huge song in 1975. However, I do have two gripes with this record. There's a cover of the Beatles' Across the Universe, and believe it or not, I'm not a big fan of the song Fame. Apparently, halfway through the record, Bowie was starting to hang out with John Lennon. So he's, he co-wrote Fame with Lennon, and just got the idea to do a Beatles, and it makes the record disjointed at the end. And it's a shame because there was two excellent songs that they left off the album, and It's Going to Be Me and Who Can I Be Now, which were both superior to those two songs. Look, whatever. I mean, Fame became his first #1 hit in the States. So, I guess, what do I know? But I think adding those two songs to the record, It's Going to Be Me and Who Can I Be Now, would have made her better flow. Anyway, I love Young Americans. I always will. But those tiny, small gripes I have with the record kept it out of the #1 and 2 spot. #2 is going to be Roxy Music with Siren. We had talked about this in my last video, which was the Roxy Music album ranking. I'll put a link in the description for that if you didn't get a chance to see it yet. But this is just a great album. It's not their most adventurous. It kind of gets picked on for being the most straight rock record of the initial Roxy run. But I mean, it's got Love Is the Drug, which was their biggest hit in the 70s, which is just a fantastic written song. Great hook, great groove. Paul Thompson, drummer, is kind of the secret weapon on this record, as he is on most of the records, because I don't think he gets the recognition he deserves as a drummer. I mean, just his drumming even on just Love Is the Drug or Whirlwind or any number of tracks on this album is just masterful. The bass playing by John Gustafson on this record is just excellent, even though he's the only Roxy bass player to play on 2 records. Every other Roxy album has a different bass player. Sentimental Fool has a very dark mood to it. It's really excellent. But I think my personal favorite song on the record is Both Ends Burning, which another fantastic performance by Thompson, wrapped around a killer hook. And personally, I think it's Brian Ferry's greatest vocal of his entire career, especially that final chorus. Just phenomenal. Nightingale has one of Phil Manzanera's most memorable guitar intros, and a sublime oboe solo by Andy Mackay. Just another excellent, excellent record by Roxy Music. Which brings me to my #1 record for 1975, which is going to be Horses by Patti Smith. It's kind of hard to find new things to say about Horses at this point. I mean, 50 years on. It's completely original. I mean, there was nothing like this before this. It's groundbreaking, it's raucous, but it's equally as tender, which is something that never gets talked about this record. You get talked about its ferociousness and, Patti's wild, stage presence. But the tender moments on this record, I think, is what makes the record. For as much credit as Patti gets as for being a wordsmith, which is 100% deserving, I don't think she gets the credit she deserves as an actual singer. There was no one who sounded like her at the time. No one who could deliver a lyric with the kind of conviction that she could and still can. Provoco delivery on Free Money and Break It Up are perfect examples of this. Just incredible. The rendition of Them's Gloria has come to be the song that is most representative of the album. And it's great. I mean, it really, really is. It's just a phenomenal opening track. But to overlook Redondo Beach or Kimberly is just simply ridiculous. I would go as far to say is that I think that the punk connection to this record, I think, is a bit overstated. I mean, it gets called a punk record sometimes, but the musicianship of her band is far too nuanced and good to be punk or proto-punk or anything like that. That's like the Stooges and the MC5, you know. But the attitude is certainly there. There's about 8 different moments on this record that, like, you know, are goosebump inducing. And that's about the most high praise I can give to an album. I mean, to me, that's why I listen to music, for those moments. Did it influence a legion of young women to pick up a pen and a guitar? It sure did. But I think that's selling Patty short, because it also inspired just as many dudes to do the same. And she continues to do so. Let's hope it continues. She'll be touring this year, actually, for the 50th anniversary of Horses. She's going to play the entire album and some other classics afterwards. And you bet your ass I'll be there for it. And I think it's worth pointing out that while I was doing this, it came to my attention. So I've done 1971 through 75, and I've done 1979 through 1988 in this top 25 albums thing that I'm doing. This is the first one that has had an American artist that's number 1. I was shocked to discover that while I'm doing this. So, but so far it's true. So let's see if that continues, or if, you know, maybe get some more American artists in there. I think, I mean, because I've had mostly, I think, Brits at number 1. Might have had a couple of Irish acts in there. But yeah, so that's it. That's 1975. And as the winter comes to a close, for me, that usually means the end of the 70s. So I'll return back probably sometime in November or December, where we pick up in 1976. We'll be picking up in 1989 in the next week or two. In the meantime, I'm still working on that Church album ranking. I'm taking my time on it because I want it to be good, because I love that band. So there'll be another album ranking in there somewhere. I think Dr. Byrne and I are going to be working on the Smiths album ranking. So that'll be a lot of fun. And it won't be hard to do because we know those albums like the back of our hand. So if you like what you've been watching on our channel, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and check out our social media. I'll leave a link in the description for the Roxy Music album ranking. I'll also leave a link for the Mott the Hoople one, since we had Ian Hunter on here. So until next time on Dead End Street, see ya.